तरशत श्रीमद श्रील भक्तिवेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल विश्व अष्टोत्तरशत श्रीमद श्रील भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद नितिल विश्व विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तरशत श्रीमद श्री प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। Today Srila Prabhupada, Nitila Pravishram Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitila Pravishram Srila Srila Bhakti Vigyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki jai, Shri Rupa Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Shara Goswami Prabhu ki Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gopal Shri Haridas Thakur ki प्रेम से को कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। शिक्षित मंडल गौर मंडल बदल मथुर धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट विराट गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री मुनि देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जय। गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। गोपाष्टमी महोत्सव की जय। श्री ग्रंथराज श्रीमद्-भागवतम की जय। श्री कार्तिक व्रत की जय। व्रत पालन करी भक्त वृंद की जय। ऊर्जेश्वरी शिवेश्वरी श्रीमती राधा ठाकुर की जय। हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समस्त वृंद की जय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय राधिकाय प्रियात्मने श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायणति नामिने। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपास्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते तिषे नमः। कुरुवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकाय तदा कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तरभक्तं व्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजुहावो पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुस्तं सर्वभूतहृदयमुनिमानतोऽस्मि। नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्। शृण्वतं स्वकृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनं दान्तस्तो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुरेत्सतं नष्टप्रायेष्ववद्रे भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे त्वां नायमां चरणान्तिकम्। भक्त्या विहीना अपराध क्षिप्ताष्टकामादितरङ्गमध्ये वृन्दे नमः। श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवा सरे गौर हरे राम राम हरे हरे Sorry, one second. I just need to respond to this. Let's do then I need to start. I do a Chaitanya internet. 1 second, I have to refresh my page. Just looking at this. So first, we read creation, Visarga, the secondary. Says that I'm not getting any signal. Anyhow, then, so there's creation, the second modes of material nature and all that. Then sthanam, the right situation for the living. Poshanam, the maintenance. The reign of the different manus who give the duties for mankind throughout the, in each age. Uti, the impetus for activity. Ishanukata, the science of God. So that refers to the incarnations of the Supreme Lord as different activities and activities of His great devotee. So that's a big topic in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Then there's Nirodha, winding up. So this refers to the merging of the living entity with the mystic lying down of Mahavishnu. And Mukti, liberation. And Ashray, the supreme shelter. Paramatma and Parabrahma. So those are the 10 topics in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And then yesterday, we read how Mahavishnu entered into each of the universes after separating them, and as Garbhadakshay Vishnu, and he created the Garbhadak waters. So Mahavishnu, Karnadakshay Vishnu, he created all the different universes, and then he entered into each one of those universes as Garbhadakshay Vishnu. And then we read about, he is called Narayan because he dwelled for many years on those waters, which are known as Nara, because they were created from himself. Nara. Interesting. Then 12. Dravya, karma, and kala, swabhav, and the jivas can produce effects only by connection with the Lord. Without His presence, they have no effect. That's what we read yesterday. Dravya, karma, kala, swabhav, and the jivas can produce effects. Let's just see what the translation was here. One should definitively know that all material ingredients, activities, time, and modes, and the living entities who are meant to enjoy them all, exist by His mercy only. And as soon as He does not care for them, everything becomes non-existent. So that's where we're up to now. Okay. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to get to verse 31 today, because it's already kind of late. I'll just read until it's for half an hour. Eko nanrichan yogatalpat samutita viryam hiran mayam deva mayaya vyasrijatrida. O Lord, while lying on a night of mystic slumber, generated the seminal symbol, golden in hue, through external energy out of his desire to manifest varieties of living entities from himself alone. Generated the seminal symbol, golden in hue, through his external energy out of his desire to manifest varieties of living entities from himself alone. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the Bhagavad Gita 9:7-8, the creation and annihilation of the material world are stated as follows. Sarva bhutani konteya prakritim yanti mamekam kalpakshaye punastani kalpado visrajamyaham prakritim swam avashtavya visrajami puna puna bhuta gramam imam kritsnam avasham prakriter vashat. So this is the Bhagavad Gita explanation of the creation and annihilation of the material world. At the end of each millennium, the creative forces, namely material nature and the living entities who struggle in the material nature, all merge together into the transcendental body of the Lord. Desires to manifest all by the Lord. Therefore, the material nature is working under the Lord. All of them under the agency of material nature and under the control of the Lord, thus repeatedly created and annihilated by the will of the Lord. As such, before the creation or manifestation of the material cosmic world, the Lord manifests as his total energy, the Mahasamashti, and thus desiring himself to be diffused to many, he expands himself further into multi-total energy, samashti. From the multi-total energy, he further expands himself into individuals in 3 dimensions, namely Adhyatmic, Adidaivik, and Adibhotik, as explained before, Vyasti. As such, the whole creation and the creative energies are non-different and different simultaneously. Because everything is an emanation from him, Mahasamashti, none of the cosmic energies is different from him. All such expanded energies have specific functions and display as designed by the Lord, and therefore they are simultaneously different from the Lord. The living entities are also similar energy, marginal potency of the Lord, and thus they are simultaneously one with and different from him. At the stage of non-manifestation, the living energies remain potent in the Lord, and when they are let loose in the cosmic manifestation, they are exhibited differently in terms of different desires under the modes of nature. Such differential manifestations of the living energies are conditional states of the living entities. The liberated living entities, however, in the Sanatan, the eternal manifestation, are unconditionally surrendered souls, and therefore they are not subject to the conditions of creation and annihilation. So this creation takes place by the glance of the Lord from his bedstead of mystic slumber. And thus all the universes and the Lord of the universe, Brahma, are again and again manifested and annihilated. Oh my God! I'm so sorry. I thought I had my screen shared. It must have disappeared. That's so bizarre. Okay. Was it like that the whole time? Okay, Indira, yes. I'm just going to read until 8 o'clock and then we'll stop. Okay. Adidaivam atadhyatmam adibhutam iti prabhu ataikam purusham viryam trida vidyatatatrinu. Just hear for me how the potency of his lordship divides one into three, called the controlling entities, the controlled entities, and the material bodies, in the manner mentioned above. He divides into three. One is the controlling entities, the controlled entities, and the material bodies. Antasharira akashat purushasya vicheshtata ojasaho balam jagye tato prano mahanasu. From the sky situated within the transcendental body of the manifesting Mahavishnu, sense energy, mental force, and bodily strength are all generated, as well as the sum total of the fountainhead of the total living force. Anupranantiyam prana pranantam sarvajantushu apanantam apananti naradevam ivanuga. As the followers of a king follow their lord, similarly, when the total energy is in motion, all other living entities move. And when the total energy stops endeavoring, all other living entities stop sensual activities. Purport. The individual living entities are completely dependent on the total energy of the Supreme Purush. No one has independent existence, just as no electric lamp has independent effulgence. Each and every electrical instrument depends fully on the total powerhouse. The total powerhouse depends on the reservoir of water for generating electricity. Water depends on the clouds. The clouds depend on the sun. The sun depends on creation. And creation depends on the movement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes. Pranenakshipita kshutrid antarajayate vibho vipasato jakshatascha pranmukam nirabhidyata. The living force, being agitated by the Purush, generated hunger and thirst, and when he desired to drink and eat, the mouth opened. Purport. The process by which all entities in the womb of the mother develop their sense organs and sense perceptions appears to follow the same principles in the case of the Virat Purush, the sum total of all living entities. Therefore, the supreme generation is not impersonal or without desire. The desires for all kinds of sense perception and sense organs exist in the Supreme, and thus they take place in the individual persons. This desire is the nature of the being, the absolute truth. Because he has the sum total of all mouths, individual living entities have become mouths. Similarly, with all other senses and sense organs. Similarly with all other senses and sense organs. Here the mouth is a symbolic representation of all sense organs, for the same principles apply to the others also. I just want to see 1 second this. Okay, so the Lord, desiring to manifest varieties of living entities, generated the seminal symbol, Viryam, golden in hue, through his external energy. Then his potency divides one into three: Adidaivam, Adhyatmam, Adibhutam. So the controlling entities, the controlled entities, and the material bodies. Adidaivam, Adhyatmam, Adibhutam. This will be elaborated on 17 to 30. Okay, that's what we're reading now. From the ether within the body of the universal form arose Ojas, Sahas, and Balam. From that arose the best life air called Sutra. And then the senses become active following after the action of sutra. What was sutra again? The best life air, okay? And become inactive when the sutra becomes inactive, just as servants follow a king. Okay. And then this is the creation procedure, what we're reading now, verses 17 through 30. One is the Virat Rup's desire to eat, speak, etc. Then comes the gross sense organs, the Adibhuta. Then comes the subtle sense organ, the Adhyatma. Does that refer to like the mind, intelligence, false ego? Then sense devata, the Adidevata. Then, from that comes the tan matra, the Adibhuta, the bodily activity. So Virat, the desire to eat. Then comes the gross sense organs, Adibhuta. Then the subtle sense organs, Adhyatma. And sense devata, Adidaiva. Then tan matra, the bodily activity, Adibhuta. And then this. So this is what we're going to read now. So the Lord's desire is to understand himself through Vedic sound, and then the gross sense organ comes the ears, the subtle sense organ comes the shotra, hearing, then the sense devata is the dig devatas, the demigods of all the four directions, and then the gross object and plus gross element, sound and ether, and then it goes through all of them like that, you know. Karna, tvachi, skin, tvak, the sense of touch, vayu, the wind god, and then the sense object and gross element is touch and air, you know, all of them. Akashini, eyes, chakshu, surya, the sun god, form, fire. Talu, the tongue, jiva, varuna, taste and water, to smell. Nasika, the nose. Gran, the sense of smelling. Ashvini Kumars, they're the presiding demigods, then smell and earth. So we're going to go through all of these different. This is the creation procedure, okay? So now we just read, the living force being agitated by the Virat Purush generated hunger and thirst, and when he desired to drink and eat, the mouth opened. Mukutastalo nirbhinam jiva tatro pajayate tato nana raso jagye jivaya yodhigamyate. From the mouth the palate became manifested, and thereupon the tongue was also generated. After this all, the different tastes came into existence, so that the tongue can relish them. Purport. This gradual process of evolution suggests the explanation of the controlling deities, the Adidaiva, because Varuna is the controlling deity for all relishable juices. Therefore, the mouth becomes the resting place for the tongue, which tastes all the different juices, of which the controlling deity is Varuna. This suggests, therefore, that Varuna was also generated along with the development of the tongue. The tongue and the palate being instrumental are Adibhutam, or forms of matter, but the functioning deity, who is a living entity, is Adidaiva, whereas the person undergoing the function is Adhyatma. So the demigod for the thing, Varuna, is Adidaiva, and the person undergoing the function, the person, is Adhyatma. That's the living entity. Thus, the three categories are also explained as to their birth after the opening of the mouth of the Virat Purush. The four principles mentioned in this verse serve to explain the three main principles, namely Adhyatma, Adidaiva, and Adibhutam, as explained before. Adhyatma means the individual living entity, right? Adidaiva is the presiding demigods for all these different things, and Adibhuta means the actual thing, right? Am I getting that right? I just want to make sure I'm fully understanding this. Yeah, the activity, the sense object plus the gross element. That's the Adibhuta. Anyhow. Okay. And Adhyatma means it's the subtle things, which is the mind, intelligence, false ego, right? Vivikshor mukato bhumno vahnirvag vyahritam tayo jale chaitasya suchiram nirodasa majayata. When the Supreme desired to speak, speeches were vibrated from the mouth. Then the controlling deity fire was generated from the mouth. But when he was lying in the water, all these functions remained suspended. Purports. The peculiarity of the gradual development of the different senses is simultaneously supported by the controlling deities. It is to be understood, therefore, that the activities of the sense organs are controlled by the will of the Supreme. The senses are, so to speak, offering a license for the conditioned souls who are to use them properly under the control of the controlling deity deputed by the Supreme Lord. One who violates such controlling regulations has to be punished by the degradation to a lower status of life. Consider, for example, the tongue and its controlling deity, Varuna. The tongue is meant for eating, and men, animals, and birds each have their different tastes because of different licenses. The taste of human beings and that of the swine are not on the same level. What's a swine? Huh. Oh, a pig. Okay. So the taste of human beings and that of a pig are not on the same level. The controlling deity, however, awards or certifies a particular type of body when the particular living entity develops a taste in terms of different modes of nature. If the human being develops taste without discrimination, as does the swine, then the controlling deity is certainly certified for the next term to award him the body of a swine. The swine accepts any kind of foodstuff, including stools, and a human being who has developed such indiscriminate tastes must be prepared for a degraded life in the next life. Such a life is also God's grace, because the conditioned soul desired a body like that for perfectly tasting a particular type of foodstuff. If a man gets the body of a swine, it must be considered the grace of the Lord, because the Lord awards the facility. After death, the next body is offered by superior control, not blindly. A human being, therefore, must be on his guard as to what sort of body he is going to have in the next life. The irresponsible life of indiscrimination is risky, and that is the declaration of all scriptures. Nasige nirabhidetam dodhuyati nibhasvati tatra vayur gandavaho granonasi jikrikshata. Therefore, when the Supreme Purush desired to smell odors, the nostrils and respiration were generated. The nasal instrument and odors came into existence, and the controlling deity of air, carrying smell, also became manifested. Purports. The nasal instrument, odor, and the controlling deity, air, vayu, smelling, etc., all became manifested simultaneously when the Lord desired to smell. The Vedic mantras confirm this statement in the Upanishad statement that everything is first desired by the Supreme before the subordinate living entity can act upon it. The living entity can see only when the Lord sees. The living entity can smell when the Lord smells, and so on. The idea is that the living entity cannot do anything independently. He can simply think of doing something independently, but he cannot act independently. This independence in thinking is there by the grace, This independence in thinking is there by the grace of the Lord. But the thinking can be given shape by the grace of the Lord, and therefore the common saying is that man proposes and God disposes. The whole explanation is on the subject of the absolute dependence of the living entities and the absolute independence of the Supreme Lord. Less intelligent persons claiming to be on an equal level with God must first prove themselves to be absolute and independent, and then they must substantiate their claim to being one with God. Yadatmani niralokam atmanam cha didrikshata nirbine hyakshini tasya jyotis chakshur gunagraha. Thus, when everything existed in darkness, the Lord desired to see himself and all that was created. Then the eyes, the illuminating God's sun, the power of vision, and the object of sight all became manifested. Purport. The universe is by nature dense darkness, and therefore the total creation is called tamas, or darkness. The night is the real feature of the universe, for then one cannot see anything, including oneself. The Lord, out of his causeless mercy, first desired to see himself and all the creation as well, and thus the sun became manifested. The power of vision for all living entities became possible, and the objects of vision were also manifested. This means that the whole phenomenal world became visible after the creation of the sun. Bodhamanas sarishibir atmanastajjigrikshata karnocha nirbhidyeta disha shrotram gunagraha. By development of the desire of the great sages to know, the ears, the power of hearing, the controlling deity of hearing, and the objects of hearing became manifested. The great sages desired to hear about the self. Who is the deity of hearing? Let's see. Okay, it's the deity of hearing is the Dig Devatas, the demigods of all the directions. Oops. Purport. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, by advancement of knowledge, one should try to know about the Supreme Lord, the summum bonum of everything. Knowledge does not mean knowledge only of the laws of nature or physical knowledge, which are working by the direction of the Lord. The scientists are eager to hear about the physical laws working in material nature. They are eager to hear through the medium of radio and television about things taking place far away from them on other planets. But they should know that the power of hearing and the instruments for hearing were given to them by the Lord for hearing about the self, or about the Lord. Unfortunately, the power of hearing is misused in hearing the vibrations of mundane affairs. The great sages were interested in hearing about the Lord through Vedic knowledge and nothing more. That is the beginning of oral reception of knowledge. 23. Vastuno mridukatinya lagogur voshnashitatam jigrikshatastam nirbhina tasyam roma mahiruha tatra chantar bahirvatas tvacha labdha gunovrita. Now it's touch. When there was a desire to perceive the physical characteristics of matter, such as softness, hardness, warmth, cold, lightness, and heaviness, the background of the sensation, the skin pores, the hairs on the body, and their controlling deities, the trees, were generated. Within and outside the skin is a covering of air through which sense perception became prominent. The controlling deities as trees? That is interesting. It says the controlling deity is air. Okay. Anyways, whatever. Purport. The physical characteristics of matter, such as softness, are subjects of sense perception, and thus physical knowledge is the subject matter of the touch sensation. One can measure the temperature of matter by touching with the hand, and one can measure the weight of an object by lifting it with the hand and thus estimate its heaviness or lightness. The skin pores, and the hairs on the body are all interdependent with the touch sensation. The air blowing within and outside the skin is also an object of sense perception. This sense perception is also a source of knowledge, and therefore it is suggested here that physical or physiological knowledge is subordinate to the knowledge of the self, as above mentioned. Knowledge of self can expand to the knowledge of phenomena, but physical knowledge cannot lead to the knowledge of the self. Yes, trees is the controlling deities of the hairs of the body. Yes. Okay. How did I make it disappear? Hey. Oh, I know. There. Okay. There is, however, an intimate relation between the hairs on the body and the vegetation on the body of the earth. The vegetables are nourishment for the skin, both as food and medicine. As stated in the third canto, Tocham asya vinibhinam vivishur dishnyam oshadti. Hastauru, what time is it? Let me just see. It is 7:55, okay. Hastaruru hatustasya nana karma chikeshaya tayastu balavanindra adanam upayashrayam. Thereafter, when the Supreme Person desired to perform varieties of work, the two hands and their controlling strength, and Indra, the demigod in heaven, became manifested, as also the acts dependent on both the hands and the demigod. And also the acts dependent on both the hands and the demigod. Purport. In every item, we can note with profit that the sense organs of the living entity are never independent at any stage. The Lord is known as the Lord of the senses, Rishikesh. Thus, the sense organs of the living entities are manifested by the will of the Lord, and each organ is controlled by a certain type of demigod. No one, therefore, can claim any proprietorship of the senses. The living entity is controlled by the senses are controlled by the demigods, and the demigods are the servants of the Supreme Lord. That is the arrangement in the system of creation. The whole thing is controlled ultimately by the Supreme Lord, and there is no independence either of the material nature or of the living entity. The illusion living entity who claims to be the Lord of his senses is under the clutches of the external energy of the Lord. As long as the living entity continues to be puffed up by his tiny existence, he is to be understood to be under the stringent control of the external energy of the Lord. And there is no question of liberation from the clutches of illusion, Maya, however much one may declare himself a liberated soul. Katim jigi shatapadoruru hate bhikamikam padvyam yagya swayam havyam karma bikriyate nribhi. Thereupon, because of his desiring to control movement, his legs become manifested, and from the legs the controlling deity named Vishnu was generated. By his personal supervision of this act, all varieties of human being are busily engaged in dutiful occupational sacrifice. Purport. Every human being is engaged in his particular occupational duty, and such activities are visible as men go hither and thither. This is very prominently visible in big cities of the world. People are going all over the cities with great concern from one place to another. This movement is not limited only to the cities, but is also visible outside the cities from one place to another, or from one city to another, by different means of vehicles. Men are moving by cars and on rails on the roads, by subways within the earth, and by planes in the sky, for the purpose of business success. But in all these movements, real purpose is to earn wealth for comfortable life. For this comfortable life, the scientist is engaged, the artist is engaged, the engineer is engaged, the technician is engaged, all in different branches of human society. But they do not know how to make the activities purposeful to fulfill the mission of human life. Because they do not know the secret, all their activities are targeted toward the goal of sense gratification without control. And therefore, by all this business, they are unknowingly entering into the deep regions of darkness. Okay, I'm going to stop after this purport. Because they have been captivated by the external energy of the Supreme Lord, they have completely forgotten the Supreme Lord Vishnu, and thus they have taken it for granted that this life, as presently manifested under the condition of material nature, is all in all for enjoying the highest amount of sense gratification. But such a wrong conception of life cannot give anyone the desired peace of mind, and thus, in spite of all advancement in knowledge by use of the resources of nature, no one is happy in this material civilization. The secret is that at every step, they should try to execute sacrifices towards the path of world peace. The Bhagavad Gita 18:45-46 also advises the same secret in the following verses. Se se karmanya bhirata samsiddhim lavate nara sakarma nirata siddhim yata vindati tachrino yata pravrittir bhutana mena sarvamidam tatam sakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manava. Okay, it's 8 o'clock. So I'm just finishing these 2 paragraphs and then I'm done. The Lord said to Arjuna, "Just hear from me how one can attain the highest perfection in life simply by discharging his specified occupational duty. Man can attain the highest perfection of life by worshipping the Supreme Lord and by performing sacrifice for the sake of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, who is all-pervading and by whose control every living being acquires his desired facilities according to his personal propensity. There is no harm in having different propensities in life, because every human being is proportionately independent to chalk out the plan of his life by different occupations. But one should make it a point in his life to know perfectly well that he is not independent absolutely. One is certainly under the control of the Supreme Lord and under different agencies. Knowing this, one should make it a point that by his work and the result of his labor, he serves the Supreme Lord as prescribed by the authorities expert in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. For performing such occupational duties of life, the leg is the most important instrument of the body, because without the help of the legs, one cannot move from one place to another. And therefore, the Lord has special control over the legs of all human beings, which are meant for performing yagyas. Alright, so we'll read the next verses tomorrow. But let's just see in this summary here. So we did, what verse is this? 26, okay. 26. So 23, so the Lord can experience softness, hardness, heat, cold, heavy and light objects. The skin, twachi, skin came, and twak, the sense of touch, was controlled by vayu, and then what came from that is touch and air. Then to see himself and other objects, akshini, the eyes are manifest. Presiding demigod is sun, form, and fire. To drink and eat, the talu, the tongue, manifested. And from the tongue came taste. And from the controlling deity of taste is Varuna. And from that came taste and water. Then like that, the Ashwini Kumaras. Now to speak, the hair, okay. To experience sensations, twachi, hair came, Roma, Mahiruha. So I guess Mahiruha refers to the trees. Why did it disappear? External inching and touch sensations. To move about, the pada, karma bir. The lord of that is Upendra, who is Vishnu, moving. And then 26. This is what we're going to read tomorrow. The Lord desired to have sex and offspring. Then the Lord desired to expel waste. Then to change body. Then to consume food, to consume drink. To contemplate his maya and its created objects. So the legs, the genitals, the anus, the navel, the abdomen. There's 2 abdomens, huh? Okay, this one is the part of intestines that absorbs food. Then that's the vein which drink in the intestine. Okay. Alright, so I'll end here now. we'll finish this creation tomorrow, the creation procedure. The Lord's desire, the gross sense organ, the subtle sense organ, the sense devata, and then the sense object and gross element. We'll finish reading all those tomorrow, and then what comes after that? After that, then Visarga is explained. The Lord, though not performing material activities, accepted the form of Brahma. Anyhow. Alright, let me end with a quick Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna. Oh wait, Indira has a question. Let me just see what that is. On verse 22, why on verse 22 says that for hearing is developed by the desire of the sages to know. I thought this is all by the desire of the Lord. That's a good question. Very good question. Hey, where's 22 here? Oh, there it is. To understand himself through Vedic sound. I don't know. Karna, he manifested the ears. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Oops. Okay. Hare Krishna. If anybody has any ideas for the answer to Andita's question, please write your comment. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Shishi Guru Gaurangam Davika Giridhari, Shishi Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki Jai. Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudeva ki Jai. Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitil Vishnu Mahabhagavat Srila Gokshwaras Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Nitil Vishnu Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki Jai. Nitil Vishnu Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Padadash Raghunath Shar Gosai Prabhu ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki Jai. Namachay Shri Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Braja Mandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Sarva Abhishya Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund ki Jai. Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki Jai. Gopeshwar Mahadev ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Shri Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki Jai. Shri Gopashtami Maha Mahotsav ki Jai. Shri Krishna Kanaya ki jai, Shri Dauji ki jai, Sarva Sakagan ki jai, Sarva Gabhigan ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Shri Nanda Baba Yashoda Maya ki jai, Sarva Vrajavasi Gan ki jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Gan ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shinitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Vrindarai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashata Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavatai Namo Namaha. Pancha Kalpatarubhyashta Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Alright, we're almost finished. This is all that's left. Just this. See that little thin sliver? Yeah, that's all that's left. And then we're finished from page 267 to 294. Then we finish the second canto and we can begin the third canto. Alright. Jai Shri Radhe. Thank you for joining me today. Haribol.